Junko's Story, Episode 3, Reclaiming the Forgotten Self, Discarding the Collective Mask. During one of our conversations about mindset, I introduced Junko to the practice of gratitude journaling. At first, she was hesitant. Sensei, the Japanese label for all teachers and experts, she said. What is there to be grateful for? The question was not rhetorical. She genuinely could not see beyond her perceived limitations. She thought gratitude was for the gods or other people, but not for her, because she had no idea who she was. Her sole job in Japanese life was to merge into the masses, be mostly silent like her father, so she had never had any contact with her true nature, spending most of the time trying to hold on to a vague image of herself by looking into a mirror, which most Japanese women especially do often. They want to beautify themselves so they can attract a good husband and continue the ancestral line. Start small, I encouraged her. Gratitude doesn't require big gestures. It grows in ordinary life, a little every day. Write down 3 things each day that bring you even a moment of comfort, joy, or connection. It could be the taste of your morning tea, the sound of rain, or the smile of a stranger. I gave all my students a special notebook to begin their gratitude journals, which I would correct to discuss in class. Junko's first entry was almost painfully simple, but the English impeccable. Number 1, I am grateful for my pencil. Number 2, I am grateful for the sunshine. Number 3, I am grateful that I woke up today. But as the days turned into weeks, her list grew richer and more meaningful. She began to notice the kindness of her classmates, the pride she felt after completing an assignment, and the sense of possibility that flickered when she imagined a different future. With each act of gratitude, her mindset shifted. She stopped seeing her challenges as insurmountable obstacles and began to view them as opportunities to grow. Gratitude became her compass, guiding her toward an abundance she had never dared to imagine. Junko was one of my quieter students, always retreating into the background. She shuffled into class with her shoulders slumped, eyes cast downward, and the weight of conformity resting heavily on her. But beneath her reserved demeanour, I sensed a spark, a potential waiting to ignite. When I asked my students to write about their earliest memories of joy, most hesitated. Joy wasn't something they often reflected on. Their focus was usually on meeting expectations, not exploring their inner lives. Junko sat motionless at first, her pen hovering above the page, and finally she began to write. When the exercise ended, she approached me, her hands trembling as she handed me her paper. Her face was tense, but her eyes held a glimmer of trust. Her essay described afternoons spent practicing calligraphy with her grandmother. She wrote about how the black ink flowed over white parchment, each brushstroke deliberate and meditative. The act of writing brought her peace and fulfillment, a sense of connection to something greater than herself. But what struck me most was what she wrote next. She had abandoned this passion long ago, believing it to be frivolous and useless in a society that prioritized practicality over creativity. When I asked her why she stopped, her answer reflected the constraints that many students like her faced. It not useful. It not what people expect of me. Her words revealed the depths of her disconnection from her true self. Yet, as she spoke about calligraphy, something shifted. I saw a light in her eyes, a piece of her soul resurfacing after years of being buried. With gentle encouragement, Junko began to practice calligraphy again. At first it was a private act, a way to reconnect with herself in the quiet moments of her day. But as her confidence grew, so did her creativity. She experimented with modern styles, blending traditional techniques with contemporary designs. I encouraged her to share her work online, and she was hesitant at first. "What if people not like it?" she asked. But with a little nudging, she took the leap, and the response was overwhelming. Orders for personalised calligraphy pieces began pouring in, wedding invitations, inspirational wall art, and even custom gifts. Her passion project transformed into a thriving side business, bringing her a sense of independence she had never known. Junko was beginning to understand a powerful truth. Reconnecting with her inner gift wasn't just about personal fulfillment. It was the foundation for building prosperity, both financial and emotional. By nurturing her individuality, she was creating a life that aligned with her deepest values. But the journey to prosperity wasn't without challenges. I had tasked my students with preparing presentations, a monumental feat in their cultural context. Public speaking wasn't just a skill. It was an act of defiance against the deeply ingrained cultural norm of blending in. Japanese society often teaches its children to read the air, to conform, avoid standing out, and maintain harmony at all costs. For Junko, standing in front of her peers and expressing her thoughts was more than a challenge. It was a battle against the collective mask she had worn her entire life. The first step was preparation. I provided templates, guided brainstorming sessions, and modelled performances to give them a foundation. Junko, true to her nature, practiced with unwavering dedication. She rehearsed 3 times a day, every day, determined to get it right. When I drew names for the presentation order, Junko's was picked first. She was visibly nervous, but determined as she stood at the front of the room, her hands trembling, but her voice steady, as she began in a rehearsal. At first she avoided eye contact with her peers, focusing solely on me. But her delivery was strong. Her timing was impeccable, her gestures natural. And as she concluded, I felt a surge of pride. She had stepped up, and she had succeeded. On the day of the final performance, Junko approached the front of the room with quiet determination. The classroom was silent as I counted down. 3, 2, 1, go. She began with confidence. Her voice carried strength. Her gestures were fluid, and her timing was flawless. As she concluded, she delivered her final line with poise. "Thank you for attending my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them." The applause erupted, and I smiled as I began jotting notes on her grade. But then I heard a crash. When I looked up, Junko was on the floor, tears streaming, biting her fingers. The weight of the moment had overwhelmed her. I rushed to her side, placing a reassuring hand on her back. She clung to my ankle, whispering that she couldn't stand. Her peers watched in silence, unsure of how to react. Later, she told me the experience felt like death.